thanks for all of you for coming out tonight. Fantastic event. So I'm going to talk about what one of you in the audience just asked about, and that what's near and dear to anyone who starts a company, and that's fundraising. And so the first question that you need to ask yourself is, do I want to spend the next 5 minutes listening to this guy, or do I want to check out what everyone's tweeting? So here are some of the reasons you maybe should want to listen to me. Then I'll give you one why you shouldn't listen to me. So we started our company 5 years ago from scratch with $150,000, and now our company is valued in the mid 8 figures. The only reason I share that is just because we are going to talk about starting with nothing and how you can actually build something substantial from nothing. The last 2 years, we've been one of the 50 fastest growing young startups in Canada, according to Profit Magazine and Canadian Business. And this year, I'm a finalist for Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Why you shouldn't listen to me? I begrudgingly, unfortunately, still use a BlackBerry, probably one of the last people in here. I don't know if the company still exists, but so if that doesn't turn you off too much, then keep listening. So the question is, to raise or not to raise? You've probably heard about so many Toronto-based companies getting so much attention for how much money they've raised. And they like to brag about and promote their awesome offices. Here's one of them with a slide in the office. Wouldn't it be great to have a slide in the office? You want to blow off some steam every half an hour, just go to the slide and slide on down? That'd be fun. I'd like to do that. And they all like to talk about the famous investors that they have and how much money they've raised. What's interesting is you don't hear about how much money they've made, but how much they've raised. The other side of it, or not to raise. You know, how often do you hear about stories of people working at sad little desks like this, in a basement, in a dungeon, in their garage, wherever? You don't hear that much. So that's the question that I'd like to address today. As a founder, as someone who wants to and aspires to start a company, and a meaningful company, do you raise or don't you raise? So what do you think we did? Well, one thing I'll tell you is that the only slide I have in my office is if I take my laptop to the park where my kids play and like slide down their play slide with my laptop. That's the only place I'll have a slide. So we started with $150,000. And we said, we're either going to make it, and we're going to turn this into something substantial, or we're going to run out of money, and we have to go back and get real jobs. And that was difficult, because we started out with a domain name, LowestRates.ca, and an idea. And the idea was, we wanted to be like Expedia and compare the market for people, but not with flights and hotels, but instead with financial products. So if someone's looking for insurance or a mortgage or a credit card or a loan, instead of having to go from bank to bank, insurance company to insurance company, you can come to one place and compare and save money and save time. And we felt in our gut like this was a really, really good idea, and that this was something that Canadians needed. But it was still a big risk. So we started with that $150,000, and we didn't have a website. We had no money to get people to our website, and we had no partners to compare. So we can't really compare the market for consumers unless you have partners. And so what does that mean? What kind of sacrifice does it take to start with no funds, or $150,000 of funds? Well, it means that you have to do everything. So I was everything from the janitor, to the head of sales, to the head of marketing, the head of business development, the accountant. And you know, on that previous slide, you saw that desk there, and that wasn't far from reality. My desk was essentially the same size of this podium. I had to share space in a rented office in a basement with no windows, and it was difficult. We figured out the only way that we could afford to attract people to our website was through something called SEO. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically figuring out a way to get to the top of the Google rankings without having to pay Google. And that takes a long time, a lot of effort, a lot of patience. And for the first 2 years, we basically made no money. I didn't pay myself for 3 years. We had to hire people basically who were really keen on the idea and bought into the idea, but were very inexperienced. And it took a lot of sacrifice, but we believed in our gut that it was a really good idea. And the snowball started to build. People told their friends about it. We continued to move up the Google rankings. And slowly but surely, we've gotten to a place now where our revenues are over $10 million per year. And the beauty is, we're funded by our customers, not by our investors. And so I'd encourage all of you to really look and think about whether you're able to fund your company with your own money as opposed to investor money. Because when you're running your company, you don't have investors telling you what to do. You can make the decisions, and you make the best decisions for you and for your customers. And if you're fortunate enough to be successful, when you can actually sell the company or you can take it public, you have so much more equity, and you can really, really appreciate and reap the fruits of your labor. And so thank you very much for your time, and look forward to any questions. Yeah, over there.
Thanks very much. Did you encounter much resistance from the banks? I imagine they try to keep all that as secretive as possible just to get you in the branch.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the main things for us to be successful is to really compare the entire market. So have all the banks, all the insurance companies, etc. And we're still not there. We're probably only 60% of the way there, because why would a bank want to expose their best rate to consumers if most people are still just walking off the street into the branch and taking the first offer that they're given? So really, I don't think we're going to be able to get every single financial institution on our site until more Canadians start going to our site. Like in the UK, 70% of all financial transactions start on sites like ours, but in Canada, it's less than 10%. So it's going to take some time, but the snowball is growing, so it's really good. It's good for consumers. So how do people find us? Yeah, people generally find us when they're looking for something. So for instance, if you type in cheap car insurance, everyone's looking for cheap car insurance, we show up first in Google. If you type in, mortgage rates, we show up high in Google. But also, we do digital marketing. Last year we did a radio campaign, a bus shelter campaign. So we're trying to get the word out there, but it's mostly word of mouth, because the banks are the 5 most profitable companies in Canada. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising. And since we're not up for raising money externally and competing with that, we really do rely on people using our site, having a phenomenal experience, and then telling their friends. Because if they save $1,000 on our site and it doesn't cost them anything, it's easy for them to say, hey, friends, family, you should use that too, right?
Last question.
Hey, is there a middle ground between a bootstrap company and a funded company?
Sorry, I can't see who asked.
Oh, I'm over here.
No, there definitely is. Look, and bootstrapping's not for everyone. There's certain types of companies where you just logistically can't bootstrap it. So there's a unique situation for everybody. But I think the one thing I'd like for you to take away from this is it's not always best to get funding. You don't need an ivory tower office with a slide in it. You don't need famous investors to become successful. You really need to look, and I'd encourage you to take as little funding as is necessary, because you're going to have better control, and then if you're ever able to sell the company, or when you're looking for funding in the future, you're going to be in a much better position personally. And if you put in so much effort to launch a company, you really want to reap the fruits of your labor if you're actually successful.
Thank you.
Thank you.